I'm open and I'm glad other people have success in AA, but I am doing my SMART program. And as it stands right now, it seems to be working for me. I am not mixing the two. Sometimes I get a little defensive when people try to recruit me.
So it's a little bit from today's guests, the guys over at 12-Step Crashers podcast. They're a couple of great guys. They've got a great up-and-coming show. They're relatively new to the space, but they're doing quite well for themselves as far as getting some notoriety and for good reason. Hey, listen, the title sponsor for today's episode is AARC. That's the Alberta Adolescent Recovery Center, located in Alberta. They're a treatment center for adolescents who are really struggling with addiction, but their model is very unique. They treat the whole family. They do so with this peer support program. It's absolutely amazing, certainly next level. Check them out, guys. You can learn more at arc.ab.ca. And in the meantime, enjoy the show. Hello, everybody, watchers, listeners, supporters of all kinds. Welcome to another episode of the Ashes to Awesome podcast. I'm your host, Chuck LaFlange, checking in from Krabi, Thailand, halfway around the world in different parts of Canada, same parts of Canada. I want to say Quebec and Ontario, but I'm not too sure. Let's start out with you, Eric, from 12-Step Crashers. How you doing?
Hey, Chuck, I'm doing good. Actually, yeah. I am in Quebec, and so is Ev.
Okay. I wasn't sure. For some reason, I had Ontario in my head.
You're probably thinking because I'm English that I'm from Ontario.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, and Ev, of course, you're okay here in Quebec as well. How are you guys doing today?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Pretty good, actually. It's another sober day, so hard to complain.
Yeah. Was it okay? Fuck off. Let's just right off the bat. You know what? It was hard to complain when I was high. When I'm sober, I got some shit to bitch about. So never mind with that hard to complain crap. Who are you talking to now, right? I'm not a fucking newcomer.
Thank you for calling me out. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Huh? We're sober and life happens, and sometimes it's horrible.
Yeah.
But no, all jokes aside, it's a good day for real.
Yeah, good stuff. How about yourself, Eric? How are you holding up?
Actually, I had forgot this podcast now is at 3:30 in the afternoon, just half an hour after I finish work. And usually when I do podcasts with Ev, it's at night. My voice has time to return to normal. I've been shouting in a factory all day across departments, right? So my voice is shot now. So yeah, I'm listening to myself and going, oh, damn, man, listen to this.
Hydrate.
I forgot that.
You listen, like you play your voice back through your headphones? You do that?
No, but I can
do that.
I can hear it when I talk, right? I can feel the scratch in my throat and everything. I can feel the phlegm that still hasn't
fucking hydrate. Grab some water, man. Get on it.
I'm on it. But it's not going to help. What happens is I have to do memes for 2 hours and not say a friggin' word.
Because you don't smoke cigarettes when you do that. That's why.
Yes. I understand.
I'll try
I'm a smoker too, so whatever. You be judgy all you want to have. I'm there with you, Eric. Yeah. I've had one in my hand since we started talking. Just haven't lit it.
You guys both smoke in your houses. Wow.
It's just me and the dog. He don't care. Maybe he does, but he can't bitch about it. So whatever, right? So yeah.
Don't worry. He's going to detect the cancer first.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Isn't that always the way it goes, right? Yeah.
When he starts sniffing around you, it's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. I don't know. I just figure he's always being judgy. Anyway. So listen, you guys, fellow podcasters, it's been a while since I've had one on. And of course, I've been watching you guys kind of develop your game or your show, your platform, whatever we're going to call it these days. And right off the bat, I guess I should say some great conversations. And in a very short amount of time, I've seen your production value jump, right? From where you were in that first episode I watched to where you are now. But that's a natural progression. I feel though that you guys are making that natural progression a lot faster certainly than I did, but than a lot of other people do as well. So good work for whatever that's worth coming from me, right? So, yeah.
First of all, thank you, Chuck, but you're the first person I came at and said, hey, what do you actually use? What's the software I should get? And you've been very generous of your tips for us as well. That helped us ramp up a bit faster.
Hey guys, just a quick interruption. Today's PSA is brought to you by FAR, that's Families for Addiction Recovery. They are a completely free service, nonprofit, located in Canada. Their aim is to help the families of people who are struggling with addiction, and they do so with a group meeting 4 times a month. They have a peer-to-peer support system that's absolutely amazing. And as well, if you need some real-time help, you can call during their business hours and speak to Sydney. You can learn more at their website at farcanada.org. And here's your PSA with Jamie Tall.
Hey, my name's Jamie Tall, and I want to talk to you about something I never leave home without. This right here is nasal naloxone. There are a couple different name brands of it. This one is called Revive. It is an emergency treatment for opioid overdose. You might think, well, I don't use opioids. Well, you never know whose life you could save. Someone who loves and someone who is loved. So don't leave home without it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, man. I had to walk around stumbling in the dark for about 8 months before anybody told me anything. And you know what? It was like 6 months for sure. And one day I was like, I wonder if there's a Facebook group for podcasting. And look, there is a lot of them with tens of thousands of people. And you can learn so much so fast. And I can't believe that I dealt with Google and YouTube and pissed around and never made a single ally in the podcasting game until I was like 6 months in. And then that changed everything for me. Like, drastically, that changed everything for me, right? So once I started doing that.
That's natural for addicts. Like, we don't reach out. We don't ask for help. We figure it out on our own.
Yeah. Do
Which is
it
crazy.
alone.
Which is, if think about that for a second. We are a recovery podcast, right? If somebody said that to you about their recovery, I just do shit on my own. I don't reach out to anybody, right? Like, well, what would you say to them, right? But yet I did the same thing. You're obviously, you've been doing the same thing as well. So fuck whatever that's about. Maybe that's something to address, right? I don't know. The fact that you just
food for thoughts, let's say.
But we're in early recovery still, right? We're actually chronicling our early recovery, so we really don't know shit about fuck. So
neither do I, man. I'm almost 2 years in. I don't know shit about fuck all. But what yourselves, Eric? Where are you at in your recovery time? If that's something you want to talk about.
Wow, no, that's all right. What's the date today? The 18th. This is the first time I've actually been paying attention to it, because it'll be a year on the 24th. So I've actually been paying attention to it this month.
Here's why. Here's why I love that. And I'll get to yours in a second there, Ev, but I relate to that so fucking much. For the first 50 weeks, it was like, I don't pay attention to it. I'm just going to live for today. I'm not going to whatever. And I would have to do the math. Every time somebody asked me, I'd be like, oh, fuck, okay, how many? I couldn't even tell you how many months until I hit about 50 weeks. And then I knew that 1 year date was coming up. And all of a sudden I was fucking counting, right? Yep. And ever since then, now I do, I still I just live for today. But now I take a lot more pride in it than I did in the early days for whatever reason.
And I have no reason why it just suddenly kicked in on its own. It just started it clicked. Like when I got to July, I'm like, it's this month. And then now I'm looking at
almost identical journey to me, man.
Yeah,
almost identical journey to me. So congratulations, by the way, on your coming up on your 1 year. Probably not going to talk in the next 5 days. So congratulations on that, right?
Thank you very much. The 24th.
The 24th. Okay. Yeah. 6 days for you, 5 days for me, right? So, Ev, what about yourself? Where are you sitting at?
I don't count days, but I happen to have checked my app not that long ago. So I'm around 500 days or 17 months, something like that. Okay. I don't count either, but again, the 1 year mark was something that I've paid more attention to. And the reason why I don't pay attention to it is that I've seen a lot of milestone relapses. People, I'm looking forward to my 3 months or my 6 months, but they're actually white knuckling until then. Not necessarily consciously, but then how do you actually celebrate in life when you have an achievement and then relapse happen? We've seen that, Eric, right? Yeah. In our group a lot.
Well, actually, what you just said is probably the reason why I've almost been focused on the date, is to pay attention to any thoughts about relapse. But I haven't had any, obviously. But it's like I'm hyper aware for everything.
I want to call you out on that. You haven't had any thoughts about relapse?
Yeah, none.
Really, eh?
You told me one thing at one time. You were driving your car, and your car just turned to the bar on
But
its own.
I didn't feel
Forgot if
like,
it's a second, right?
yeah, but that wasn't an urge or a craving to drink. That was, I was feeling too good, and I remember I told you I had another period of 2 years of sobriety in the 2010s, and I used to hang out in clubs with a bottle of water and not drink all night and just dance, and that's where my car was leading me to the club. I used to like it, my hand was like turning to the wheel, turning like that. I went, no, you're not, and I brought it back, and then I noticed I was drifting again. I went, the fuck you are, like people, places, and things,
right.
man. You're not going there.
No kidding, eh? Well, good. I'm glad you didn't, buddy. Glad you didn't. And that's funny. Yeah, I used to be able to go longer periods of time too, without even. But I think once you get to a point, and that's it, right? You're not going to be able to go back and do it normally. And I mean, none of us are special. We're not. We like to think we are. And terminal uniqueness, as one of my co-hosts Ryan likes to call it, right?
I've heard that many times.
I heard that a lot too.
Yeah.
Yesterday we heard that actually.
Yesterday.
I think one of the recurring themes that we've explored on the podcast, Eric and I, is like even a certain discomfort, but I haven't really have urges at all myself either. A couple of things we have identified is that before going to treatment, we actually accepted that we were addicts. Like not everybody comes into treatment with the same mindset, right? I had made a conscious decision that I would never be using anything ever before I even stepped foot in the treatment facility. And at the same time as I was doing 10 grams of coke per week, I had already decided that this would come to an end and it would be terminal, right? I know it's uncommon, I would say, for most people. Like most people, at least first attempt at recovery, you kind of feel that well, if only I could learn to drink properly again, like I can behave like a normal human being and cure my addiction is definitely the wishful thinking that a lot of people have. But another thing as well is that I've traumatized myself and definitely disgusted by the substance. Not necessarily scared, but disgusted by what the person I became rapidly when losing control, right? So I don't romanticize at all the substance, and I guess I feel privileged for that. But yeah, I also think that one other thing is that neither Eric or I ever touch opiates. And of course, the physical part of addiction, we don't really deal with as much.
Myself as well. I share that with you in that opiates were never my thing, right? So, which is that it's an interesting thing in that I like, even as a fellow stimulant user, I don't know what your struggle is. I have an idea about some of the fundamentals of it, but I don't know, right? We can never know what another person goes through. And so when somebody chooses to put their experience onto somebody, almost weaponize it when it's an alcoholic to a drug addict, or which is, I don't even think they're separate things. The only difference is legislation, right? At the end of the day, and stigma, right? Yeah. But for me to say to an opiate user that I know anything about your struggle, I don't fucking clue, man. I just don't, right? So the nerve it takes for, say, somebody to say you don't need MAT therapy or, methadone or whatever, the nerve it takes for somebody to say you don't need medication of some kind or therapy of some kind or some of those toxic behaviors that happen in some of the fellowships just blows my mind. It just blows my mind that that's even a thing, right? Of course, with a name like 12-Step Crashers.
What gave that away?
Ev and I have talked. Ev and I have talked about that, about what your guys' brand is about. So let's talk about that, actually. Let's talk. Why 12-Step Crashers?
Well, that came about organically. What's that?
Yeah. Okay, it's best things usually do, right? But why? Where's that come from? Explain it.
Well, I'll let you go, Ev. Go ahead.
Well, originally, just if I can make the backstory to that, is that we have been in a treatment facility in Quebec that is not 12-step, which is kind of rare, It is smart recovery based, and there's maybe 2 or 3 maximum in Canada that do smart recovery. So it's kind of unique in its form. And a common denominator is people that don't either have tried 12-step and it didn't work for them, or they are not inclined for the spiritual thing, you know? Um, and, you know, it's science-based, so there's data, you can track it, you can benchmark yourself against the program. So, you know, like if you have an analytic mind, it's hard to like do that and also consider 12 steps. Let's just say it this way. But in our alumni group, there's a lot of steppers, and that's not a problem in itself. But not long before we started the podcast, 12 step has been more advertised, like or pushed, I would even say. And there was even have been a split, like new meetings were added to the schedule, which is fine, right? Having options for different types of meeting in a community is great. And Eric and I, at some point, our smart meeting was canceled, but 12-step meeting was available at the same time. And I called Eric, says, why don't we go on that guy's meeting, right? So
And I said, fuck no.
He's in those meetings all the time. Yeah, and well, hear me out. That might actually inspire us for the podcast and the B page. And this is when he tagged along. So first of all, I gotta say that in my opinion, regardless if it's 12-step, if it's NACA, Buddhism, or SMART, or anything, the first 20 minutes, if you subtract that of any meeting, is maybe different. But whenever an addict talks recovery, it's universal language. For me, there's no difference. People don't even follow topics because we're a bunch of addicts and we do what we want to do. We talk about where we're at. And at least in our group, we cross-talk all the time. So that's, you know, like for me, there's no difference. And I believe, Eric, you have also acknowledged that. I believe the topic was acceptance, whatever, step one. If you
the only step I do.
Yes, the step I did before going to treatment, you know. And we came in last. I mean, it must have been at least like 40 person on a web meeting. So that lasts more than 2 hours. That was a long meeting. And we came in last, or two of the last shares. And we actually, like, no pretension or anything, but we literally crashed the thing, bringing in smart concept and like tying the program with the step itself. And we were actually like closed, and a lot of people reached out to me like, what a fantastic share on Messenger, and was like, well, something just happened. I believe we just crashed a 12-step meeting. Right?
Okay.
It was not ill-intended or anything. We're really just being the same authentic and genuine addicts talking recovery.
Yeah.
And we are both not inclined for different reasons for 12-step, but we are also both curious about it. So, well, there's a thing. I believe we have a name, like, and I told Eric, you know, the movie Wedding Crashers. Well, we could be a bit more respectful than they are, but, you know, like, you get the concept. They are always accepted wherever they go because they don't cross certain lines. And in our pilot episode, that's the statement that I made. Like, I ready to bet with you, Eric, that whichever meeting we go, we'll never be told to leave, because we know how to respect the community and actually just follow the codes. And most definitely, we will learn from all the fellowship we come across. So that's the basis, in a sense, of all this. And then we came across pages like 12-Step Humor. Not sure if you know that guy.
I've probably come across him. Yeah, there's Bill Wilson. There's a bunch of them that are
well, they are very acid, and I would even say like bitter. Sometimes the meme that they produce was, well, we want to have something a bit more chilly or like reflective. Like we're gonna like a friendly critique, if you want, sometime, or just like more on the light side.
Tongue in cheek and whatever, right? It doesn't have to be horribly, offensive, right? And I'll admit, if I can interrupt you, when I first came across it, I was like, I don't know if I want to share this shit because, like, I don't know if I want to cross that line because I don't want to piss people off in 12 steps. And I'm not a 12-stepper myself. So, but I've been. Here's the thing: and you might find this as your podcast continues to evolve. for the first year, every time I had what I call a hardcore 12-stepper come on, it was like, fuck, it's going to be one of these 12-stepper no-step guys, and I'm going to be really worried about it. Never, not once. The people that I expected to be that were all very accepting and very open. It's the vocal minority of people that we tend to focus on, and that's what we get ready for. But that guy never comes in. You never see that guy.
It's like on the main game. It's the trolls that make the most noise, but they're a minority. Yeah. So I agree with you. And perhaps we will eventually regret the name of the podcast, but so far it really is our journey. You know. Actually, I don't believe we will regret it, but it will probably evolve in its meaning or in the way we approach it.
And who knows? You don't know what you don't know about the future. That exactly. I can tell you, man. The show I have today is wildly different than 260 episodes ago. It's wildly different than 130 episodes ago. It's wildly different than 50. Like it just than 100 episodes ago. But like it changes, it evolves, it goes up and down, back and forth. My opinions do, the issues I think are important do, you know. So, and I'm sure you'll experience the same thing, just because that's what we are. We're humans, and right. The more knowledge we gain, the more things we're exposed to, the more our opinion, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to. Fucking grown ass man. I don't need to tell you how it is when you grow up.
but you're right in many ways. We are in infancy of this project, and we already. I'm going to speak for myself, but we chat on that recently, Eric and I. But I've grown a lot from doing that. Like I've changed perspective on many things, like things that I said on previous episode. On the first one, but most particularly are not relevant in my mindset today, you know, and that's just a couple of weeks ago. Some assumptions about 12-step because we were exposed to a specific person that doesn't represent that has his own, that's the person, that's not the movement, but we add a certain buildup of resentment or apprehension or disagreement, like all of these negative things towards that specific person, towards predatory behaviors we would observe, like all these kind of things that are cliche, if you will, but that does not represent the entire thing. So
no, it really is a vocal minority, right? Those toxic egos, those guys that weaponize their clean time, the things that we all get, like the God pushers, like the whatever. It really is a vocal minority of people. Yeah. At the end of the day, fuck, Eric, it sounds like you were a little more, correct me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you were a little more resistant. Yeah.
I still am. But that first episode, I have a hard time watching that one because, and we don't do that anymore. It was on a day I had therapy. So I had my therapy that day. And that therapy that day, that session was about anger and management. So if you see that first podcast, I am amped. I am amped the whole episode, and it's over 2 hours long. And every little thing Ev says in that episode triggers me. I'm just like, we discussed this. Never again are we doing a podcast on a day that I had therapy. This is not a thing anymore, because I look back at it.
Changes over time, though, right? Therapy should not leave you feeling amped. Therapy should be the opposite of that.
Usually it doesn't, but for some reason that day, everything we talked about was triggering, and I just laid into it 100%. Like the person he's talking about, I laid into him 100% in that episode. And I look
more than he deserved, I would say. More than he deserved.
I told you about episode 224. I think you started to listen to it. I don't know if you ever got through it, where Mike Miller defends the fundamentals of 12 steps.
Yes, I've listened to that one specifically because you shared me the link. We were talking about that topic.
Yeah. Eric, give it a listen.
Okay,
give it a listen, man. Like, it is. It's episode 224. We just talked about it in a recording I did yesterday. That's why it's on the top of my head now. But Mike is he's as atheist as they come as far as the God thing goes. But he just celebrated his 20 years on June 5th, and he's a 12-stepper.
Right.
And the way he describes the fundamentals and really, like, we hear principles over personalities, but the way he so eloquently explains all of that from his point of view really opened my mind in a giant way. right? To what the potential is for the 12-step programs.
Now,
Right?
I will go and listen to that. Thanks for telling me exactly where to find
Yeah.
it. And this is my issue. Now I'm going to explain myself more clearly.
Yeah.
I've dabbled in 12 steps. I went to meetings. I tried to get into it a bit. When you're in early recovery, you want to have all the tools at your disposal, right? You want to know how
Yeah.
to recover properly, right? Well, guess what? For me,
Yeah.
how to recover properly was not to do two programs at the same time. So I've
Okay.
stopped that. For me, I'm open and I'm glad other people have success in AA, but I am doing
Yeah.
my SMART program, and as it
Yeah.
stands right now, it seems to be working for me. I am not mixing the
Oh
two.
yeah.
You
Absolutely right.
understand?
No,
So but
100% I
so
do. Yeah.
sometimes
100%.
I get
Yeah. Yeah.
a little defensive when people try to recruit me or try to sell me on
Yeah.
AA when it's almost like they're disparaging my program, right?
I
Well,
hear
no,
you.
what
And
you really
which is
need is this. And I'm like,
yeah,
no, I fucking
which
well
is the
don't.
same way. So because of that, because what you just said, what I think is really important is that we acknowledge that people who are 12 steppers experience the exact same feelings when we say
Yes,
this is what we don't like about 12 steps, right?
that's
And they're
right.
like, hey man, this should save my life, right? For 20 fucking years, I'm dead if this doesn't happen. So it's really instant, like this kind of fight thing that they go into as soon as you say anything disparaging about the fellowships, right? So that's something for me that I'm hyper aware of now, not because I'm afraid of the reaction, but because I'm respectful of other people's reaction to it. Right? Much the same. I would never try and push anything on you. I'm not a 12 stepper, so why? You know what I mean?
Right.
But
No, I understand.
the reason I say to listen to that episode is not to get you into 12 steps, but just to defend the program, not to promote it to you, but just like this. He really just put to bed so many of those
Another
misconceptions I
thing,
think that we all have, right?
yeah, and we've talked to several 12 steppers, not that much on the podcast just yet, but off the record.
Yeah.
And most of them are even more critical than we are toward that specific subset of individual because it also affects the brand of AA.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
And then
in
that was
our
reassuring.
Traction.
In our alumni group,
Sorry.
we have people doing both programs, or we have some that are just steppers, and many of whom I respect, and I listen to their opinions on the subject, right? But there, like you said, there is a subset, and like you said, they want their program to be respected. They don't like what's out there or what's said disparagingly about them. Same goes here. Okay, it goes both ways.
Of course, right? Yeah. I mean,
And from our point of view, we learned recently it's not the case because our own group was essentially started as a 12-step. Even though we are a SMART community and we come from a SMART facility, and this is supported by their money, right? But originally, when that started online, people were stepping on those meetings. There were maybe like a bunch of them. Now it's grown into a large community, and we came out of the treatment into the meetings in a SMART mindset. Like it's linear for us. It's not. It's more complicated than that in reality. In the community as history, it's been going on for 4 years.
There's like
a lot of things.
4 or 5
our assumptions we didn't know. Yeah.
4 or 5 members that are original steppers to the online
it's basically
meetings.
It's COVID. It's COVID that started the meetings online for most fellowships, right?
Yeah.
So,
I came across something with Smart Recovery about a year ago now, coming up on a year anyway, where I was trying really hard to find a facilitator to come on and talk about Smart Recovery. This is when I was in Alberta still. What a horrible time I had trying to do that. And I'll tell you what happened for me internally as a result. I went into 3 different Facebook groups and asked, does anybody want to come on to a podcast? I was immediately kicked out of 2 of them for asking. And then it was one of the kind of the higher ups or whatever, one of the, I don't know how the structure works that way, but somebody who had something to do with the Alberta Smart Recovery Program. I was messaging with him and he's like, yeah, no, we're not interested. You can come to a meeting if you want, but no, we won't be doing anything like that. It was like this whole I don't understand it felt like a cult. And for me, it put up a bunch of walls. Like it did. It was like, why the fuck won't anybody talk to me about it? Right? Like it was really hard to get anybody to talk to me about it. Since then, I've had some people willing to do it, and I've had one guy come on, and Mike out in Alberta, Mike Logan, who was just amazing. But in the beginning, man, it was like, if you don't want people to think you're a cult, then stop acting like a fucking cult, because that's what's happening right now, right?
Eric, the only person we've blocked on the page, to my knowledge, is a crazy lady that administer Smart Group, because we were trying to advertise our page on there. And so this is not smart. You even discussed 12 step. 12 step do not even exist. We don't talk about them. It's like, well, maybe you are a bit psycho rigid. Like things exist and we can talk about them. She wouldn't have it. Like, I even wrote an email to the administration of Smart. I didn't look forward for a reply, but it's like, just by the way, this person is a licensed professional. Like she's actually insulting people on the internet, so you may want to look into this. And then I left it there and blocked the lady from her page and pursue her adventure. So it's really not to say that toxicity is limited to a program or the other.
Yeah, I guess so, right? Vocal minority is going to happen either way, right? Anywhere you go.
And herein lies some of my reasoning for the page, for the podcast. I've often told Ev, and what I don't like, in my opinion, what I don't like about certain aspects now, apparently, of both groups. I don't like I can't say that word, anonymity. Being anonymous.
Anonymity.
Yes. I don't like being anonymous.
Yes. No.
When I went into treatment, the email, I took a leave of absence from my work. Personal leave of absence. I was gone for a month. I thought it was 2 weeks. Okay, I thought I was gone 2 weeks. It had been a month. That's how far off I was down the rabbit hole and hitting rock bottom.
Yeah.
And so when I got into treatment, when I got accepted, I sent an email and I addressed it to everyone in the company. It went to the secretary, the administrators, the foreman, the high ups. Everybody knew where I was going. I announced it to the world, basically, at my work, right?
Wow.
So it was never a question. Somehow, for some reason, in my brain, it was, if you're going to succeed, if you're going to recover, you can never lie about this. So you may as well get it over with now and tell everybody. And in some ways, I don't know why. This is how my brain works. I'm also neurodivergent. I've told Ev before. There's things I won't say out loud because my brain decides, okay, if you say it out loud, you have to do it now. So I'm very careful, actually, in some things I say I will do.
Say it becomes real.
Yeah, I manifest it almost.
So, and you're still now, with the benefit of a year. We'll say it's a year. You're less than a week away. Do you still believe that you did the right thing?
I have no. I have no regrets.
No. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that you should. I'm just curious as to if your opinion changes on that after a year or not.
It is what it is. I did it at the time, and I don't regret it.
Well,
cool.
I have a similar story and perhaps different experience, but I also took it to my personal Facebook page with like near 5,000 people that most of them I had professional link or, it was a risky business for me to say, okay, by the way, I'm a cocaine addict and I'm going in rehab and we'll talk in 30 days. But that was also commitment for me. There was part of the fact that I've lied so much, especially to people that were closest to me. I really wanted to come into sobriety with the intent of being authentic, honest, vulnerable, and never lie again. Like, it's more important in my program to not lie than not use. Not that not using is not important. Not that abstinence is not my program. It's just
But lying is a fast track to relapse, so I can totally appreciate why you say that.
I am wary of my behavior much more than my craving. Well, of course, because I don't have cravings, but like, if I have multiple relapse, right? It's the emotional mindset change. And this is where I intervene with myself, not because I've picked up the substance, but my mindset is the mindset of an addict, and that there's something I need to do to fix that,
Yeah.
But all that to say that I came clean about this, and I receive a phenomenal amount of support. Of course, I didn't check, but maybe lost 1,000 people that unfriended me for that, and I think that's a good thing. Like,
Obviously,
that needed to
right.
happen,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that part I do not regret. However, like the stigma hasn't left me, and it's funny because I was entrusted. I was considered an expert in my career, in a lot of my hobbies, in parenting. It's a big one, parenting. Most of my friends had kids later in their life than me, so they were coming up to me for my advice, whatnot, about their own children.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those things are things that I greatly underestimated the impact of saying, "Hey, I'm a drug addict," by the way, onto the legitimacy of, well, being entrusted, and just like people not to assume that I'm a threat to, well, my company, a threat to my children, a threat to, whatever it is. Because I didn't know before going to treatment that the success rate in 12 months for cocaine is 3%. I didn't care even, because I made that decision. I will never use again. For me, it's like, well, I don't, but then for some reason, I ended up in family court. And my family court case was also the same spirit. I just say the truth. The ugly one, the cute one, all the truth, which didn't play in my favor. But then again, I was very naive as a human being to begin with, but as an addict, and definitely as a recovering addict, I don't regret that. But I still have to deal with that stigma daily.
Of course, you
know.
Yeah.
And in a way, I'm grateful for that, because, well, all of a sudden, I had to submit drug tests, and not only like the regular ones, hair follicles test, which dates back 90 days legally.
Yeah.
Like not that I would consider relapsing, but it was not an option. And all those testing cost us about as much as I would be spending on drugs at my worst, So there's that as well. I need to be able to afford those tests, and that's it's not a given. And I guess that game of authenticity I could have lost, like many times I felt like resorting to lie to protect myself, or just like white lies.
Mm-hmm.
And I refuse to do that, because if I do, for me, that's my addict mindset. That's me relapsing. I don't have to use. I could spend 10 years not using, but if I'm lying my way out of the shit, that's for me, it's the person I don't want to be,
The way it was explained to me by Mike Miller, actually, the first time I heard it, and now it's something that I've heard many, many times since, but was that if you start living out of your alignment with your values, you start feeling shitty about yourself. That's a quick way to relapse, right? Because now you've got feelings you don't want to feel, right? Because your behaviors aren't something you're proud of, and all those things, and that's a straight line to it. Right. So the two are very much, I see exactly what you're saying there. Right. Yeah. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
I just wanted to say that if I'd have to do it again and consider all the impacts, perhaps I would have limited my total transparency to a subset of people that are in my circle rather than the entire world. But if I would have done that, I would not have had the opportunity to be on a podcast, either as a guest or as a host, I'm speaking the truth to the entire world right now, and I'm comfortable with it because, well, this is what it is, and I'm already labeled as a fucking addict. So what else? What else could I lose? From talking about getting better.
Yeah, no kidding, right? No kidding. For me, getting into this so early, like we were talking, I was like sober for 3 months, and I got into podcasting. I guess very similar in that the whole world knows, so whatever. here we go, right? It's just, it is what it is. A funny thing with me is the podcast became a major part of my recovery, right? Had I went and got a job in a warehouse or whatever, because, like I was in trucking for years and years or whatever I was going to do, I don't believe that I'm sober today. I don't think I had a chance had I gone and done that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had at the time those resentments about 12-step, and that would have been by far the easiest fellowship for me to be a part of. And, like there was, I think I would have, I don't think there's any way I'm sober if I'd not chosen to go the route of the podcast. But I eat, shit, and breathe recovery for 16 hours a day, and it makes it a little bit easier, right? So yeah.
Well,
It's interesting.
I think we both can relate, because in essence, what we've done besides our meetings with our alumni group, Ev and I are constantly working on memes, and then we have our podcasts. So it feels like we're living in recovery all the time too. And actually, the memes are, for me, I find them quite therapeutic, because the ones that I change over anyways, it's a lot of me coming out. A lot of situations, especially therapy ones, and the DOC ones come out, and they're just stuff I did or stuff I thought. So it feels like therapy.
What type of therapy are you doing, if you don't mind me asking that? Can you?
Well,
are you okay to talk about that, or?
It's CBT. It's a continuation of
CBT. Okay,
of the SMART. Really, it's CBT therapy but it's a little different than the rehab, because with the therapist, you're actually getting to your emotions. They want you to describe things as feelings, not thoughts. So if I start to say something and I'm trying to explain it, I get shut down. No. I want you to be like, tell me how you were feeling. Tell me what the emotion is. So and it's hard, right? I got a 55-minute session, and I'll spend 40 minutes going in a circle, because I got this weird ADHD, neurodivergent brain. And the last 15 minutes will be therapy, when she finally reins me in. It's like I circle the drain until I get close enough, and she goes, okay, right there. Stop right there. I want you to sit here at this moment.
Right? And I don't know, if you know about my journey, how I got to Thailand. Do you know that?
I didn't see anything about you getting to Thailand.
So Mike Miller, who is the guy that I was talking about earlier, he heads up the Yatra Trauma Center here in Thailand. They treat trauma therapy, or he does trauma therapy, and that's all they do. Right. There's a recovery component to that. And, where addiction is a smoke, trauma is a fire is, one of their taglines. Most certainly was the case in my situation. But he came on the show June 5th of last year. I hit stop recording at the end of the episode, and he said, "You've got some shit you need to deal with." It was like, oh, is that obvious? Right. And fuck yeah, I did. Right. I sure did. At that point, I would have been 6 months clean. Right. So he said, "Hey, if you can get to Thailand, I'll give you a scholarship, but you got to get here." So a few months later, I got on a plane to come to Thailand, and I haven't left since I got here. Right. So I did the 30-day at the trauma therapy, CBT, internal family systems therapy, CBT. Fuck, what am I missing? Oh, EMDR.
Right.
EMDR. If you get an opportunity to do EMDR, holy.
Yeah, it didn't work for me, EMDR, though, actually.
No.
There's something about skepticism and EMDR that blocks you from accepting it, I think.
Two people have tried it with me, and they're like, no, it's not going to work for you. You can leave now.
So you're right, Chuck.
I would be curious. Mike is so gifted, and I think everybody's going to say that about their therapist or whatever, right? But oof, fuck. He took, for me, the most traumatic memory I have. It was built, just to give it a name at the beginning of the session, I melted down. 20 minutes later, and since, I've been able to talk about it in a matter-of-fact way. So it's pretty amazing experience for myself, right? But wow, yeah.
It's worth giving it a shot, that's for sure.
Yeah. Have you gone down the therapy road yourself, Ev? Or?
Yes. Right now, I'm not in the active psychotherapy. I'm waiting because I specifically a PTSD that has been diagnosed and that needs specific therapy. So I'm on a wait list for that. for specialists that will do just that with me. So, but I'm followed by a social worker who's also unofficially, but still a therapist, right? So on a weekly basis, and it's been 17 months, and sometimes twice a week. That has been my grounding resource. Going through a divorce, in early recovery, and
Yeah.
self-esteem down the drain, and codependency. That's definitely more hardcore than drugs for me. It kept me afloat, I would say. And now I'm getting to the stable phase, I would say, where well, I have 3 specific therapy lined up, but my post-treatment plan is 24 months. So for me, I'm remain in rehab after rehab for 2 entire years. That, I'm 17 months in, probably behind schedule. So it might take 3 years to achieve all of my goals.
Yep.
But it's going pretty well, I would say, in the circumstances. And the podcast, as Eric said, has been extremely useful for my own recovery, because you get into a meeting, there's a topic that you didn't choose, and you can just ramble. Like, it doesn't have to be true, you doesn't have to think it true. It can be extremely just negative, and there's not necessarily value if you don't work it, that meeting. But on a podcast, when I consider, like, we don't even have an audience like that is that important, but whoever could listen to it at any moment, like, it helps me or force me to think it twice before I actually open my mouth. Eric sometimes
Jeez,
likes to
gifted.
Eric likes to play devil's advocate with me, and like, I welcome this, because, well, I like being challenged. But in that case, it sparked reflection that I wouldn't definitely not have on my own, that I would probably not receive from a feedback that is generally pretty light in a meeting. And I would definitely not get from my social worker that is there essentially to validate me, so someone that actually challenge, or not doubt, but like, have you second guessed yourself, kind of thing, has been pretty interesting. But also hearing other people that have stories that have nothing to do with mine. I'm thinking about, like, autistic people that we've had opiate addicts, like, it's something that I know nothing about. So, but recovery is one and the same for everybody. It's just like, there's so much more that I don't know versus the thing I know. And I have a tendency to be an opinionated person, and it keeps me humble, I would say.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. Nothing wrong with being humble. I try. Don't always succeed, but I try. It's been interesting for sure, right? Yeah. What you got? What's your plans like? What do you got coming up on the podcast? Let's talk about that. Okay, first, no, sorry, I'm bouncing around. What was your last episode? Because I want to give people an opportunity to, like, we got to steer them your way, right? It's half the benefit to being on a show is to tell people about what's going on in your world. So, as we come up to the last couple segments here, what was your last episode that you released? Do you want to tell us about that?
Is it? Well, we have one coming out, but it hasn't been released, right, Ev? There's the last one in my memory is my episode where I did something a little, maybe not out of character, but maybe a little risky.
Getting fooled by
rather dubious.
an addict and active addiction, and reflecting on that. So Eric got fooled, to say the least. And nothing bad happened.
I'm sorry, he what?
Well, explain it.
So I got a call from someone I went to rehab with, and I'm going to be non-specific here, right? They were kicked out of their house, and they needed help to get their stuff and a ride to a place, right? So when I spoke to them, they sounded fine. And so in my mind, I have the memory of this person that I knew for about a month and a half in in rehab, and this person was a good person. This person had good qualities, a fun person, vibrant. It took me a while to track them down in the city because they were putting me off, and then I could tell there was something wrong. And by the time they finally arrived at the meeting spot where I'm supposed to help them and grab their stuff, put it in the car, and they're hammered, they're just out of their mind, and then it put and I'm in early recovery, and I know this person, and I'm dealing with my own emotions while managing their behaviors. And I'm not a counselor, but this is something we talked about in that last episode.
Okay, and is that the one that was recently released, or the one that's coming up?
Yes, that's the one that's coming up. I don't know what it's titled.
Okay.
I'm releasing it after we finish this recording, so we are the 18th. So later tonight it will be online. But yeah,
awesome.
To elaborate on your question, Chuck, we have two different distinct formats. So we have the actual podcast on which we have a guest or more, about at least one guest for each episode. And we also do what we call the Freestyle Sundays. So instead of going on a meeting on Sunday, we kind of reflect on our week or on random topics. So we go like very full ADHD mode, only the two of us. The latest one was what Eric just explained. The one before in that freestyle session was me going on a date, finding myself in a bar because I choose so. And is that a good idea in early recovery? So, we reflect on our actual behaviors in real time. So we're working on a program with an audience. That's what it is for the freestyle. And the one before that was Father's Day. So that's an opening with me being vulnerable for 20 minutes about my shortcoming as a dad, essentially.
He did a monologue for like 18 to 20 minutes. I could have left the room, had dinner, come back. He still would have been talking. So we can never tell what's going to happen, right?
I was trying to answer your question. Your question was, did you have a good day today?
Yeah, that was. I shouldn't have brought that up, huh?
but yeah,
silly
for
me.
For the guests we have on the podcast, the latest we did was with Neurodivergent Experience. That's a group that is also, there's a Facebook group called Tell Me You're Neurodivergent Without Telling Me. So we had two of their staff, so one admin, the founder, and a moderator. And we discussed recovery from a neurodivergence perspective. So recovery
I've watched a big chunk of that one. That's some really good talk in there. There's some great conversation in there.
Right. And a statistic that struck me that was revealed to me on that podcast is that 80% of people with neurodivergent will develop at some degree substance abuse problem, either from self-medication.
Oh yeah, there's
or
massive correlations. Right? Yeah. Absolutely, there is. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And where do people? You're on Spotify and YouTube.
Correct. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And we have a meme page that kind of competes with yours as well. But
it's not competition. At least not yet.
There's no competition.
I'm kidding.
Competition happens at the bottom. Collaboration happens at the top.
That's what it is.
Yeah. 100%.
And we're not going to name drop anybody.
I always mean to share more of your stuff, and then when I think about it, it's like shit. I just posted, and then I'll go back in and I'll get something shiny, and I don't. Right. So the best way, and I'll tell you, it's the same way I do it with Chantel. The best way you can do it, if you think you got a killer like a banger meme, message me with it. And then I'll be like, now I know when to share it. Right?
We could open
yours is one of the pages that I do try to do that with, right? So
we could open an inter-page chat kind of thing. But I don't know if you already have one.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Yeah, I could add it onto my list of group chats that I sometimes never open.
Same for me.
You can imagine.
That sounds like
part of the challenge I have is in those early days when I was doing 6 episodes a week, especially, but even since then, the mothers, the fathers of people who suffer an addiction are all in my Facebook list, right, on my messenger list.
Yeah.
So I have conversations with moms of people we've lost, moms of people who are still in it. I have these conversations daily, right? So I have there's a lot of open conversations I have at any given time. So sometimes it's easy to get lost in the fray, if you will, right? And if one of those moms, especially somebody who's lost somebody, shows up on my message, it's like your recovery royalty. I have to you get my time, above and over everything else, right? So yeah, right.
Yeah, we had that actually 3 weeks ago for the first time. We lost a brother in sobriety, and
I'm sorry.
not to addiction, to medical complications. But yes, we've witnessed for the first time the impact we had on their loved ones, because even the text I wrote on the page, spontaneously, a large chunk of it was used for the obituary. And I don't know these people. I never met them. I said, well, perhaps we're doing something good. And correlation as well, not necessarily causation, but we did a freestyle podcast on that topic, and it's the most viewed episode so far
watched,
that we have. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Right. And that's all finding the why, right? When the why starts to develop, things just get better for you. They just do, right? Because then you're not going to find any more authentic thing than that, than wanting to help people and wanting to empathize and wanting to. I'm not even sure the verbiage I'm looking for there, but
right. But being of service.
Something Mom said to me early on is, when you figure out the why, the how just comes, and things have since then, right? And yeah, that's it. Being of service, right? Yeah.
Well, it's eye opening, right? We're still in early recovery, and I think the more people we talk to, the more we learn, and the more we broaden our perspective, because this is the point of the almost chronicling of our journey, is that in some ways, I'm sure we're going to be going back to certain episodes after a certain guest and going, oh my God, what they just told me. I got to go back to this episode and hear what I said, because I think I'm really fucking stupid here. I don't know shit from fuck, right?
I'll tell you what, there's some key issues. Harm reduction, and it's different because harm reduction is a massive word. I think it's a lot bigger than people think. That
you should break it
generally
down.
Speaking, but a lot of people, right. But when you say harm, certain facets of harm reduction or aspects of harm reduction, mandated treatment is those are probably the two biggest ones for me, where my opinion has gone back and forth a dozen times. But the latest guest that was on has made such a great case for this, so I'll think about that, and then it's taken me now till about the last year the last maybe 3 months to get to a point where I'm willing to take a stand on a few issues, because I was just so flaky's not the right word, malleable,
right?
Yeah.
On some of those things, right?
Right.
Mandated treatment being one of them. I'm an absolute fan in some cases. I think it's something that we should be doing. I think when you have somebody in a serious opiate addiction, they have lost capacity to make good choices for themselves. Their prefrontal cortex is not working. Why the hell are we letting them make decisions for themselves?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When they're one use away from dying. And I just, at some point, compassionate intervention is a thing. And I think we should be doing it more often, more certainly than we do now. So, and then kids, safe supply. Oh, fuck, we could do a whole episode about that. I don't even want to open up.
Right. But just to bounce back on what you said about mandated treatment, I think it's also something that is very unique in Canada, at least in America, is even our carceral system is a rehab system. Forced, of course, but the intent is to get people better by force or by coercion, if we say.
The problem with that, though, is that when we refer to incarceration as mandated treatment, we're not doing the real idea of treatment, not incarceration.
I'm not saying it's equivalent, right? but this is usually what the system trying to do is to get people better. Just saying.
I can't tell you how many of my guests, most of the women actually, as compared to men, but how many women went to jail and that was what did it for them. So it is certainly an aspect of mandated treatment, right? Without a doubt. Chantel is a great example of that. Yep. She was in jail, and that's finally what did it for her.
And
right? Was
Keegan, the rapper, as well, has a similar story.
Yeah. Matt Keegan. Yeah. Have you had him on?
No, but we want to book him.
No. He's great. Yeah, he does a great episode. Yeah, I've had him on. Him and Benjamin Lerner is also very gracious and willing to come on as well. If you get the opportunity to have him. So anyway, guys,
one of the themes we did hit on. I'll just quickly. One of the themes we did hit on that we came. It's almost like a revelation that came to us is. We've both agreed, me and Ev, is how come critical thinking, how come CBT is not taught in schools at a very young age, so people make better decisions, know how to manage their emotions early in life. Why is it not? It's not taught at any point in the school system, but why isn't it? It just seems like a no-brainer.
Like it should be given.
Right? Well, we're too busy learning the history of the Russian Empire and the fucking, you know what I mean? Like,
but like we have potentially different opinions on stimulant medication for kids. Like, I do believe there's a purpose for certain people, but like that's the go-to solution without even a real diagnosis of ADHD. Well, actually, most kids would benefit from being able to manage their emotions. You know, like the basic stuff that we learn in CBT. I believe is an opportunity missed for preventing addicts to be emerging from that system.
Yes.
Or just troubled teens, troubled kids.
Yeah. Listen, guys, we are getting to the top of the hour.
Yep.
Right.
So I'd like to get into my favorite part of the show, and that's the Daily Gratitudes. Today's Daily Gratitudes are brought to you by Yatra Center here in Krabi, Thailand, where I reside. For any of you that are new to the platform, it's where my healing journey in Thailand started. I was fortunate enough to experience their residential treatment program, completely changed my life. They treat addiction through the lens of trauma, and they do it very well. You know what they're fond of saying, where addiction is the smoke, trauma is the fire. In my case, that certainly turned out to be true. You can learn more about them and see a bunch of episodes that they've been on at huapodcast.com/trauma. And here's your daily gratitudes. Why don't we start with you, Eric? What you got for some gratitudes today?
Did you say me?
Yes, I did.
Well, let's see. Today, let me see. I always start in the morning by just I'm grateful to wake up. I've often said this, the life I've led, the abuse I've done to my body over a 35-year period, I'm always grateful to just wake up. But today I know a friend of mine is suffering because friends of hers, close to hers, passed away. And again, addiction. And I'm just grateful that I still have my friend and she wasn't with that crowd.
Yeah. No kidding, eh? What about yourself, Ev? What are you grateful for?
I think, first of all, I want to say how I cultivate gratefulness every day. Is the first thing I tell myself when I wake up in the morning is that I make a conscious decision not to use, and that this is making me happy. And happy as a broad word, right? It's not pure joy, but this is what keeps me content in life, and this is what opens my art to actually acknowledge that I have things to be grateful for. But just for today, I'm extremely grateful that you hosted us on your podcast and the opportunity that this represents, and just the fact that we get to speak recovery, and we're not, unfortunately, like other people we know, still in active addiction, is a privilege that I will cherish forever. So that's enough to be grateful for just for today.
It is so. Myself, I'm grateful for an opportunity. Yeah, this episode's been a long time coming, so that gratitude goes both ways. I'm happy to finally get you guys on. A couple fellow Canadians, which doesn't happen as often. Well, more so often, I guess, these days. For a while, there was almost all entirely American. So I'm very happy to have you both on. Appreciate that. I'm also very grateful to every single person who continues to like, comment, share, do all of the things, smash the buttons down at the bottom. So every time you do any one of these things, you're getting me a little bit closer to living my best life. My best life is to make a humble living spreading the message. The message is this. If you're in active addiction right now, today could be the day. Today could be the day that you start a lifelong journey. Reach out to a friend, reach out to a family member, call into church, go to a meeting, pray. I don't care. Do whatever it is you got to do to get that journey started, because it is so much better than the alternative. And if you have a loved one who's suffering an addiction right now, who's taking the time to listen to this conversation, if you could just take one more minute out of your day and text that person, let them know they are loved. Use the words,
You are loved.
that little glimmer of hope just might be the thing that brings them back.
Thank you, Jeff.
Oh, where's my notes? There it is. Okay. Good job.